morning to you all. I am very pleased to be here. Bala, thank you for organizing this great event and for inviting me to speak. Minister, it is purely delightful for me and no coincidence that I frequently am trailing you around this great country, as so many of my interests are coincident with your own. Arnathor, it's a great treat to meet you, and I do hope to meet the future founders at some point later on today. I really do, Minister, appreciate the very cordial and collaborative working relationship that we have already developed and look forward to a good deal more. Thank you all for coming here today and for permitting me to address you on a topic in which I have a special interest: entrepreneurship and innovation. What is happening here at Startup Iceland aligns very much with a key priority that I, as the U.S. ambassador, have undertaken here, and that's building closer commercial relationships between our two countries and finding new opportunities for cross-investment. I've been on this job for just a bit over 4 months, and I've already seen that many small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, which started in Iceland, are now bridging the Atlantic and opening offices and commencing operations in the United States. I'll speak about a couple of them in just a moment. I've also had the chance to see larger, more established companies make the move to the U.S. and begin new cooperative efforts. What I've seen in this short time has been very impressive, exciting, and a bit familiar, as in my previous life, I was also involved in this kind of development. I spent 33 years as a lawyer in private practice in Boston, which is my home, before assuming this job that I'm now privileged to hold. And during that fairly lengthy period of time, I worked very closely with SMEs, mostly with startups, helping them to deal with initial formation, IP protection, network development, and to grow in employees and customers and turnover, and from time to find startup or Series B capital. One great example is a former client, a company called Funk Software, whose founder, Paul Funk, was a client of mine from soon after the time he started his company in 1983 until its sale in 2005. Paul was and is a personal friend, a great guy with even better ideas. In the early 80s, by simply turning spreadsheets on their side via software, Paul made possible printing in landscape mode, then a very revolutionary idea, and he revolutionized business printing. He was always full of great ideas and developed and marketed through Funk Software a number of other products, but he always insisted on keeping things simple. He didn't seek any venture capital money, which is a little bit unusual, but it worked very well for him because he found niche markets, trusted word-of-mouth advertising, did strategic advertising, and with his team built a great company that ultimately sold in 2005 to Juniper Networks for $122 million. Funk Software's success and growth is really a classic American tale. The company started small. I will tell you that my wife was its first employee. It had specific objectives and principles, and Paul, the founder, with his developing team, stuck to a plan. He kept control and developed this business into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. As the company's legal representative, I helped Funk establish a corporate structure that fit their objectives, anticipate and avoid legal trouble most of the time, make connections, and provided in general the legal support that a small and growing company needs. The lessons I learned from my time working with Funk have considerable relevance to what I am now doing as the ambassador. And because as an American ambassador, it's my job to facilitate, and that's what I'm here in Iceland to do. what I'd like to do in the next couple of minutes is highlight for you a couple of examples of this facilitation. And I want to do that because by your being here today, by having an interest in new business ideas and the inspirational and supportive environment that Iceland provides, I believe all of you are taking your first steps toward building your enterprises, the next companies that maybe will be able to be assisting in establishing a foothold in the United States, or perhaps helping you find an American partner to develop and expand the reach of your businesses. One project I'm quite passionate about, and the minister mentioned it, I didn't see Thor, but I'm glad he's here. It's something I'm actually personally helping to assist in the export to the United States, if I can say that. It's in the fisheries sector, and it is the Iceland Ocean Cluster. The concept was developed by Thor Sigfusson here in Iceland. You all, I'm sure, are familiar with it. And over the past several years has seen great success, and the minister described a bit of that. And now Americans, myself included, can see how the model of the Iceland Ocean Cluster could be developed and applied in the United States. Thor saw here that there were many complementary companies and research being done in the marine industries, especially in fisheries, but that the work was being siloed, and his efforts have resulted in the establishment of a cluster and a house to house the cluster members, so they could have the opportunity physically to work in contiguous space and develop collaboration, new ideas, and get guidance as appropriate. The result, as I see it, of the ocean cluster here is astonishing. There are several companies that have started within the ocean cluster's house and are now on to bigger projects. They've graduated, although it seems no one really leaves the cluster, as the successful individuals are now providing mentorship to the new ventures. One focus of the cluster that has particular application, I think, in the United States is the effort at efficiencies in the use of marine products. The whole utilization of the fish approach, which is reflected in a number of companies, among them one, Codland, that was started out of the ocean cluster. And Codland's goal is to increase the value of raw materials that are the fish. From cosmetics to pharmaceuticals, the opportunities are many and varied. And what has been called byproducts, that is the non-fillet portion of the fish, are really very much viable and marketable and very valuable products. That is something that has particular appeal to me as a New Englander, where fishing stocks have depleted dramatically over the past years, where very serious quotas are in place, and where the opportunity to get more from less very much resonates with me, and I believe with municipalities and universities and private companies on the U.S. side. So we've been involved, our embassy, before I got here, and certainly since I've gotten here, we've been involved in efforts to seek to establish clusters in Portland, Maine, now in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and perhaps in New Bedford. And we're even beginning contact with academic and research institutions in South Carolina. So I hope perhaps next year, if I may be so lucky as to be invited back, be talking to you about how Americans, not just Icelanders, are working towards the whole utilization of the American fish stocks of lobster, scallop, and maybe even shrimp. Another terrific example of the collaboration between our countries and, frankly, the involvement of the U.S. Embassy here, which began certainly before I arrived, involves another Icelandic company, Kerecis, which you all may know about. Kerecis has developed novel wound covering products from fish skin. And it's in the process now of starting up operations in the United States. And just last month, with the assistance of our embassy, has announced a new research collaboration project with our Office of Naval Research in the Department of Defense to develop new treatments for wounds. So I bet you're sensing a theme here, right? The type of collaboration that I've described in these companies and the efforts that are underway is exactly what I'm aiming to replicate many times over, I hope, during my tenure as ambassador. Americans and Icelanders have much to teach each other, and I hope that knowledge will flow in both directions across the Atlantic, and I'll do whatever I can to facilitate those exchanges. I know I've spent a good deal of time talking about fish, but after all, we're in Iceland, and that makes a lot of sense here and, frankly, in my home region of New England. But all of these examples tie back to the beginning. Everything I've talked about started with a simple idea, and with the grit and the imagination and the hard work of the creators of those companies that I've mentioned, people like you all. They've grown what they started into something even larger. So the beginning, that's where many of you are today. The startup, the great idea that's getting ready to burst onto the scene, is the first step of your journey. Entrepreneurs need to be inspired, they need guidance, they need assistance, and I hope that each of you will find that through the various sessions offered here at Startup Iceland. I have confidence that this time will be well spent for you all, and I hope in the future to be working with you to expand your businesses in the U.S. market. Thanks very much.